when this thing says we are live. By the way, Bloom, do you know what this is on my head? It's not a do-rag. It's not a headband. You know what it is?
What?
I'll show you.
Oh, no.
It's my mask.
Skiing.
It's my mask.
Yeah, you're a skier.
So then you can just wear it
and also when you go out.
And then you go out, you go like this. And then when you want to look fashionable, you go like this.
Right.
Or you go like this.
That's like a Ronco 4-in-1 ad. You need to get some sort of, sponsorship. It's a mask. It's a hat. It's a headband.
It's a do-rag. It's my do-everything thing. I got one of these in each car that I have, which means I have
do-everything do-rag. That's good. Let's market that.
Yeah. All right. Let's market preseason watch list. 32 teams, 32 episodes. Every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. It is the NFC South as we go through, Bloom, and let's talk about Hotlanta. And Hotlanta looking at maybe Todd Gurley not playing. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Matt Ryan starting up at the top with everything in place and a new tight end. What are you thinking about Matt Ryan's fantasy prospects this year?
Yeah, in some ways, the Falcons' season last year was a bit of a surprise or notable because it was all set, right? Dan Quinn was going to get fired. We didn't know about Tom Dimitroff. The team was floundering. And then everything turned around. It may be taking a step back as we saw Jeff Aldrich and Raheem Morris call the plays on defense. Maybe this is a little note for Sean McVay out there. I don't know if he's going to hear it. He's taking a step back, and the Falcons saved their coach's job. And here we are keeping the band together. And this offense should be better this year with the rookies from last year, the first-round picks, Lindstrom and McCaffery, hopefully staying healthy. But this team was a better team with better defense and a more conservative offense. So it's almost like if you think the Falcons are just going to slide again and Quinn's going to get fired this time around for sure, then that's probably good for Matt Ryan and his fantasy prospects. But I think chances are you can find a quarterback, whether it's early or mid or late, that you like to exceed expectations more than Ryan.
Yeah, more than Ryan. And behind him, there's not really much. Matt Schaub, Kurt Benkert, who's a young Matt Schaub. So.
Right. Schaub is that, coach's favorite backup. He's going to go out. He's going to execute the playbook. He's going to run the plays as designed. At one time, we loved Matt Schaub. He was a Kubiak offense quarterback. Especially what Kubiak offenses can do for quarterbacks sometimes. But now, good backup.
And some guy named Andre Johnson was pretty good in the day as well. We're old, but we can still rock headbands. Kind of.
Yeah, we still do whatever we want.
Old. Right. Todd Gurley's old, and now it was the headline on Pro Football Talk today, recording July 24th. Like, Gurley's not going to play if they can't come to an agreement. Now, as we're recording, I think the meeting's already happened, right?
Yeah,
it was supposed to be 11:30.
3 calls today,
Yeah, 3 calls for the NFL, NFLPA, and see if they can get on the same page in terms of testings and protocols and all that kind of stuff. Let's just go with Gurley's going to play. What's left in the tank with Todd Gurley going back to Georgia?
He's got still that downhill running game, and that will fit with what Atlanta wants to do. Again, though, you want this offensive line to be able to move human beings and create holes because it wasn't able to last year for Devontae Freeman, who had a few weeks of relevance, but otherwise underwhelmed. But what you like about Gurley, if you are going to take him, is that early schedule. And if you want to take Gurley, probably take him. It cost you a 3rd-round pick, cheaper than last year. He's not going to be that involved in the passing game. Gets to go up against Seattle, Dallas, weeks 1 and 2, then the Bears, and then Green Bay and Carolina, weeks 4 and 5. So Seattle, Dallas, Green Bay, and Carolina, maybe 4 of the worst 8 teams against the run this year. Certainly going into the year with teams working out new personnel. Seattle having to do that. Dallas is having to do that. Carolina is having to do that. Green Bay didn't get any new personnel, which is the problem in their run defense. So you like, if Atlanta can be competitive. Gurley, if his knee's not acting up and his knee is going to feel as good as it is all year, at the beginning of the year, maybe you take Gurley. He helps you get off to a hot start in fantasy leagues, and then you sell high when everyone thinks Gurley's back because he has 6 or 7 touchdowns through the first 5 games, maybe a few 100-yard games in there. But he's never going to be involved in the passing game the way he was before. As cue Dr. Gene here, he has a degenerative knee condition. It's not going to be the same as it was before. So I would feel more comfortable, say, in the 4th or 5th round, or if you want to go for the revival guy, maybe David Johnson a little bit later than Todd Gurley. But Todd Gurley, at least early, could work out.
Well, and you bring up David Johnson. I think his window could be larger than Gurley. Gurley's window is about a month. If I can get Gurley of, 75% of what he used to be for about a month, that is probably going to work out. I know fantasy GMs, they want to think fantasy football it's forever. And I draft him and I got him for 16 weeks. No, you don't. Can you capture a window? What does that look like? And where does the price tag? Where's the pocket protector nerds that can come up with some sort of formula about that, Bloom? Like your window compared to your price tag, compared to your value.
Right,
and like, I'm sure it's out there and it got value. Hell, I talk about it. I just can't do the math.
It was my understanding there'd be no math.
All right. How about the math of this? Ito Smith's got some skill. Right. Brian Hill, Mr. Versatility from the Wyoming Cowboys, baby. And even Quadri Olison was able to get some things done, get to pay dirt. So Falcons have an interesting group. Sans Todd Gurley, because you have to prepare. Not that I'm handcuffing Ito Smith, waiver wire speed dial for me personally, just because I think if Gurley goes down, it'll just be even more of a committee. It's already kind of a committee.
Exactly. That's the problem. If Gurley misses time, if everyone can rush to pick up Ito Smith or Olison, who probably would get the touchdown opportunities, or Brian Hill, who the team trusted last year for a little bit, didn't do very much. But the problem is there's not only Cecil, they're not a clear number one guy out of these 3. They're all mid to low replacement level backs. I think that if Gurley goes down, some guy on the street might be better than any of the 3 of them at this point, although they like Olison. So Olison might be the one I would recommend if you have to pick one up or you have to carry one into the season in a 32-team league. Olison would be the guy. But the reality is I don't think they have a true backup, the kind that we look for in fantasy.
Kind that we are continuing to look for as we get to Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. We know what Julio can do and not give you enough touchdowns. That's not going to change this year. Double-digit touchdowns once in his career. That's just who Julio is. Stop complaining. Ridley is the more interesting one because it's like, okay, well, has he peaked? Has he put up career best numbers yet? No. They've been pretty much identical over the last 2 seasons. He was on his way to posting career best numbers last season in 2019, but only made it through 13 games. So 16 games, an emerging Calvin Ridley. Year 3, Bloom, usually a year we used to associate with a breakout year for a wide receiver. Calvin Ridley, while Julio Jones has plenty of value and plenty of blah, 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 the more interesting talking point is what's Ridley got this year?
A lot. And this could be the year Ridley exceeds Julio, right? So if we're talking about taking a Falcons receiver, you could take Julio, late 1st, early 2nd, or you can get Calvin Ridley in the 3rd or 4th. Give me Ridley. Because I think they're close enough in value that I want the player on the upslope. And Ridley, by the way, has done a lot to show, like, he's defied age. People thought, well, he's kind of old coming out, or market share. Again, that Alabama issue where the stats don't jump out at you because of so much talent there. I don't think his measurables just as jumps, I think, were maybe a little below what people think a first-round wide receiver should have. Just throw that all out the window. He can play. He knows how to get the most out of what he has. And as you said, it's just injuries that have held him back from being all that he can be for your fantasy team. This year, he can absolutely do that. I think that they can both be good picks. I think Julio can still be a top 5 receiver and deliver that value, although I'm breaking ties against wide receiver, at least through the first 2 rounds. Ridley, absolutely, a lot of people will circle as a top target around a part of the draft where a lot of people are going to love a lot of those receivers. So there's a good chance if you want Ridley to be part of your draft plan around the 3-4 turn, maybe even farther into the 4th round, he'll be there for you.
He'll be there for you, and he should pay off for you, which is nothing but a very good thing, and paying off for Matt Ryan and that Falcons offense. And then behind him, some names, interesting names. Laquan Treadwell still kicking around, and Justin Hardy, Russell Gage there. still been looking for that third receiver for Atlanta to come through.
Right. It's been Austin Hooper, right? I mean, that's the question here.
Yeah.
So we can bring in the tight end take, because if we're talking about Russell Gage, we should also be talking about Hayden Hurst. The idea here is this. Ridley and Jones, magnifico, and it means there's somebody that is going to be open. And Matt Ryan's often looking for that somebody. Austin Hooper had a tremendous year, and usually when Ryan is struggling to get the ball to Jones and Ridley, that's when the big numbers would come for Hooper. It could be Russell Gage. Absolutely could be Russell Gage, as he came on as a slot receiver. Remember when they drafted him out of LSU, hyper athletic, we just didn't know if he was even going to be a wide receiver or a defensive back. Laquan Treadwell, I'll mention, he's that first backup outside. And when we saw Treadwell last year with Minnesota, he looked fast. He did not look like that guy the year after that catastrophic leg injury he had, where he said, well, he's going to get something else back. It looked like he got some of it back. So I'll be watching that. If Ridley misses time, if Julio misses time. They also have Olamide Zaccheaus, another slot receiver. So if Russell Gage is going to be pushed by somebody for that number 3 role. And the idea is, if you don't like, either you like Hayden Hurst. If you don't like Hayden Hurst, then you should be liking whoever that slot receiver is. That's why we're going to watch. Brandon Powell's there too. So we'll watch that slot receiver battle. Russell Gage has the lead going in, but it's training camp, watch list, preseason. Without preseason, things can happen.
Yeah, things can happen like they did with Hayden Hurst coming over to replace Austin Hooper. And from a physical standpoint, Hurst is more talented than Hooper in terms of burst and explosiveness and strength and all those sorts of things. It's just staying healthy and staying productive and staying consistent. Also, he's old. What was somebody's floating around the stat about like him and Eric Ebron, right?
Yeah.
That he's only like a couple months. Ebron's been in the league much longer. I think it was Ebron Bloom. I might be misremembering it. And then Hayden Hurst is like 4 months older than him. And Ebron's been in the league for 4 more years. It's the baseball.
Pittsburgh Pirates. Getting involved with the Pittsburgh Pirates is never good for anybody's career in any sport. I think Hurst got the yips. And
he did.
Now he doesn't have it as a football player, at least. And athletic. We saw that 61-yard touchdown, I think, last year. He's got some speed. And if you think the role made Austin Hooper, then you want Hayden Hurst to be your aspirational tight end one this year. Your guy you're picking. I don't know. You might be able to get him outside of the top 10 or 12 tight ends, depending on how the folks in your draft think about him. Yeah, the point is you don't have to spend on him. Austin Hooper was the number 1 tight end for a decent part of last year. And Hayden Hurst can do everything Austin Hooper can, maybe a little bit more. Austin Hooper wasn't really adding much at the catch point, wasn't really adding much after the catch, but was very, very competent. And that's why I'll easily take Hurst over Hooper this year. But there's definitely a riddle here of that number 3 target will have value. I would put my chips on Hurst. And again, even if you take a Kelsey or a Kittle early, you can still take Hurst at ADP. And if Hurst hits, you've got lots of possibilities. And you denied one of the teams that waited on tight end being able to close to equal you after you got that elite tight end early. So consider Hurst at ADP, even if you go early tight end.
What does it say about the Falcons that this episode's going to be like 10 minutes long?
They're by the book. It's funny. I was noticing that too, Cease. They're just by the book.
Because these are always like when I edit them, you know what's fun, Bloom?
Yeah.
We can get it within like seconds.
Right.
And not on purpose, by the way. We're just free flowing. We're just talking, baby. And it'll be like 22 minutes and 30 seconds and 22 minutes and 32 seconds. Like these are really, really close.
Right.
This is seriously going to be like a 12-minute episode with bumper, with an outro, with my little signature sound drop at the end. Why is that?
It's because this team is by the book, and there's not a lot of Hayden Hurst. That's the one guy where we can get into kind of a pro and con, and here's the reasons to be hesitant. Here's the reasons to like him at ADP. But we know exactly who these guys are. Even Gurley at this point, we know who he is. We know who Julio is. We know who Ridley is. We know who Ryan is. And this all comes back to, it's funny, Cease. I'll add a little bit of time on here because we're moving into our new place here on the Bayou and getting out our special Mardi Gras things and the Zulu parade. Hopefully one year on Fat Tuesday we'll be raising one together, watching Zulu. And coconuts are what you want at Zulu. And we got one nice coconut, and it has hand painted because they're always hand decorated. If you get one of the special things, it has painted on the scoreboard, Atlanta 28. New England 3. Never forget, I mean, even when the Saints fans are down about the whatever call or whatever game Drew Brees blew or something like that, there's always 28-3. And I think that was that high water mark. And it really shows he's kind of like a human being that like, if it was a human being, an individual human being, you'd go through therapy or something. You try to work through it. I think this franchise is still trying to work through it. The pieces are there. This is a good surprise Super Bowl team. You want to pick a team seemingly come out of nowhere because they got it going in the right direction. They have the pieces. There's a little bit of turnover on defense, but this is a team that is kind of got in their own way. We know they have the talent. It's just a question of putting it together within the context of 1 year, which has been very difficult since that horrific experience in the Super Bowl.
Some would say that O'Doyle rules.
Yeah.
Others would say Matt rules. What does that mean with the new direction, new quarterback, new head coach for the Carolina Panthers? The preseason watch list continues next. Yeah, 15 minutes with all of our flubbery.
Well, I mean, I can't really even set up how to debate these guys. So
right. It's like Matt Ryan, go. Same.
Mm-hmm.
Todd Gurley, what's got left in the tank?
I got to work on my whistling if I'm going to do that.
Yes. All right. Let's get Carolina going in 3, 2, 1. We all have a great appreciation and love for Teddy Bridgewater now taking over the Carolina Panthers. What does that mean for Teddy? What does it mean for the Panthers and those skill position players, including Christian McCaffrey? We're going to get to all that and more. It is the preseason watch list here on the Audible. It's 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about on this show. Today, Carolina Panthers. Today, Teddy Bridgewater. Smart and accurate, boom. The key for quarterbacks. And I remember talking to Greg Cosell about this. I've talked to Scott McCloughan about this. Lots of luminaries in the NFL that have had this discussion. Like, what's the key? Brian Billick, I've talked to him. Yeah, baby. What's the key for discovering quarterback talent? Smart and accurate is what it boils back down to. Because as Scott McCloughan told me, the physical stuff's easy to see. That's easy. It's the intangibles. It's the work habits. It's the study habits. So it's all that. So smart and accurate is what Teddy Bridgewater is. Now taking over Carolina. What does that mean for fantasy GMs?
Hopefully exciting things. Totally starting over. This is, complete reset for this team. I know Marty Herney's still there. But Matt Rule is one of the coach kings where he has that power. You can see it in personnel. They brought in Robbie Anderson. They brought in the linebacker. My brain is Tahir Whitehead. They bring in PJ Walker. That'll be interesting to watch him battle with Will Grier. A little preview of the quarterback section here after Teddy. And they get Teddy. And they get Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. And again, we'll say this. It's not hyperbole. LSU 2019, one of the greatest seasons in college football history. And if you were to say, LSU 2019 was the best offense in college football history, not by some statistical standard, but just to do what they did to the SEC.
Right.
I mean, it's a debate. Joe Brady authored a lot of that. Now he gets to author this offense with Teddy Bridgewater, who he knows from working with him with the New Orleans Saints. So while we're worried about teams with new coaches, new schemes, new quarterbacks, with the lack of that ramp-up time in the offseason, a camp that isn't going to be like a typical camp, maybe the Panthers have a little bit of a drop because Brady knew what he was looking for in Bridgewater. There was a lot of talk early before free agency that Bridgewater was the guy that Carolina was going to zero in on, and they did. And it's exciting because I think that Brady's going to have a really good picture of Bridgewater's strengths. And can we just take a moment out? Maybe we'll let this stretch out a little bit since we were short on the Falcon show. Can we just take a moment to say, praise the powers that be, that Teddy Bridgewater is getting a chance to be a starting quarterback again, that Teddy Bridgewater is getting an opportunity to be a franchise quarterback again. Teddy Bridgewater rode his bicycle to the games here in New Orleans. How can you not love that? And when people found out he was doing it, he said, "Come on and ride with me." Yeah, I mean, it's like Rocky, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a real one. He's a real dude, you know? Teddy's wonderful. I think whether it's remotely or in person, you get a feel for this guy's aura. You get a feel for him. And I just want to take a moment out to say that it fills me with joy to know that he's going to get a chance to show folks what he can do. And what he can do is be a leader. Remember, the Saints, their season was barely interrupted at all. Oh, Drew Brees goes down. What's the team going to do? Teddy comes in, and they're a fantastic team. Some might say they were a better team with Teddy than they were with Brees. So I think it's great. And this goes back to the Miami show. Oh, why wouldn't you just start Will Grier so you can get Trevor Lawrence next year or something like that? No, we can make this work with Teddy. Mm-hmm. So from a fantasy standpoint, you have to be excited because Teddy has that quick release. This team has a defense that's being rebuilt from the ground up. Phil Snow, a defensive coordinator from Baylor, Rule brought with him. They're going to lose a lot of games. They're going to be behind in a lot of games. Oh, did we mention they have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Robbie Anderson playing from behind? This is fun. They got Russell Okung. So, they go from a power drive blocking guard and Trey Turner, who they trade to the Chargers to get Russell Okung, who's going to allow Teddy to just set up, let it go. So I'm excited for Teddy as a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues, as a late round quarterback, a matchup quarterback, as someone in certain DFS. First game of the year sees the Raiders. I like that. I like seeing what this offense can do right out of the gate against the Raiders defense. So this is fun. And it's especially fun because Teddy is somebody that I will unabashedly root for. I'm just sorry I never got a chance to ride my bike with him last year.
And that's the thing. Like it's separating the real football from the fantasy football, but still there's some exciting matchups you want Teddy in. And I think, Bloom, we've talked about it before in just this industry or any industry, really. It's like there's some bad people that get ahead and you hate it. And then when good people don't get ahead, that put in the hard work and stuff, you feel bad. With Teddy, it's just I'm glad to see him get that chance because I don't think we've ever really seen what he could be for a full season.
No.
Like we've seen glimpses, and I want to see more. He deserves a shot to show us more, and he's going to do that this year.
Yeah. And Cecil, look, he didn't even play a meaningful game in like 3 years going into last year. So there's a real possibility that he's just getting back into it. And his career's picking up where it left off when his knee basically just disintegrated on him. I mean, it was a potentially life-threatening injury when it happened in practice. So I think there's still talk about some Vikings teammates were shook and will forever be kind of shook being there for that moment. He experienced it, and here he is. So yeah, we're fans, big fans.
Yeah, his leg went like this.
Yeah.
So Teddy, good on you. Let's talk about the guys behind him quickly. I think we saw enough of Will Grier, and people around the building were like, that's coming from the owner last year to play Will Grier, and he wasn't ready. PJ Walker there. I actually talked to Philip 3 months ago, something like that. When the XFL was done, whatever that was, 2020 is like 7 years long. It's like a dog year for humans.
Yeah.
But I did talk to Philip Walker, PJ Walker, and interesting, athletic. Didn't look bad in the XFL. So preseason watch list, Bloom. If there was a preseason, I would be watching. Yes,
and I think that this is interesting because Rule loved Will Grier. They asked Rule about Will Grier. It's like I saw him hang 60 on us. It's tripping English. Do you speak it? Rule has some respect for Will Grier, and what we liked about Will Grier at West Virginia is aggressive-minded, lets it fly. And then PJ Walker goes back to Rule at Temple. So XFL showed out probably the best quarterback play in the XFL. So these are all things that we take into account. If Teddy, the little ankles or whatever, if he gets hurt, or if by the end of the year the team's 2-11 or something, and they just want to see what they have in these younger guys. So we want to see what they have in them too. Absolutely. I think it was Adam Leviton. I was just on the show with Adam and Evan. And they love to sweat DFS, preseason DFS. And it was going to be the PJ Walker to Keith Kirkwood connection. But no longer, at least not this year.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey and 1,000 again. Maybe. Why
not?
I'm not saying no. Like he's got that talent. He's got that ability. And Obviously, it's pretty easy. I'm taking Christian McCaffrey number 1 overall.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much to this. You have number 1, you have Christian McCaffrey. And here's a little anecdote I'll bring up, Cease. Someone was asking me about, I don't remember the exact trade, so it's probably like go back, my brain, Swiss cheese. But it was a keeper league, I think. And the keeper league trade was something like Alvin Kamara and George Kittle for Christian McCaffrey. And I evaluated it, and I thought, it's probably McCaffrey. That shows you how much of a advantage there is getting the number 1 pick in your draft as opposed to the number 4 pick, because Kittle's a second round, third round pick. So the gap between number 4 and number 1 this year is roughly equivalent to a top 25 player. That's how lucky you are to have him. And Cease, if we're going to talk about the players who broke out in Joe Brady's system last year, Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, that's going to map to one DJ Moore, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Dare I say Joe Brady might find some ways to use Christian McCaffrey that haven't yet been done with what he did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. So good on you if you get that number 1 pick.
Yes, good on you. And, well, people will be trying to find a handcuff, right? It's Reggie Bonifant.
Good luck.
There was, did you comment on it or did I comment on it in our newswire about Mike Davis? I think that might happen last night after my shift was over. But like Mike Davis might have the leg up over Reggie Bonifant or Jordan Scarlett. I still like Jordan Scarlett's game. So preseason watch list, I'll be watching. I just don't know if I'd be taking a handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. I don't really think there is one.
No, again, in your 32-team leagues, Mike Davis is the most accomplished back. Reggie Bonifant is an interesting guy that they like. Jordan Scarlett is a little more of a straight-ahead runner. Maybe he still has a little bit of growth in him coming out as an underclassman. But that's what you're looking at here. If McCaffrey goes down, we're just going to all cry. See, if McCaffrey goes down, I'm not going to pick up anybody. I'm going to say on principle, you're not allowed. No, you're not allowed. I'm not going to decree that. But why would you want to get anything good out of something that would be one of the saddest things that happens in the football season? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. We're not going after any handcuffs. There's not a clear handcuff. And chances are whoever it is going to be underwhelming even compared to expectations. A la Ty Johnson or Brian Hill last year, the year where none of the waiver wire pickup running backs came through for us. That is probably what I'd predict here.
Expectations for DJ Moore, 100 catches?
Yeah.
Okay. Robbie Anderson, deep targets, 8-10 touchdowns.
Maybe.
I could see it. The one who hurts here that I feel bad for is Curtis Samuel, because we saw flashes last year with Curtis Samuel of how the ways he should be used. Curtis Samuel is not just a wide receiver. Like, he should be carrying the ball. He should just be used in space. Like, he's so versatile. But now you've got the rules in place. You've got Robbie, that Temple connection, coming through. Robbie will be the deep target. DJ Moore can pull off the Justin Jefferson, which means 109 receptions from the slot last year out of 111. So, okay, 100 for DJ Moore. Maybe. Not projecting that, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, with Anderson, I think we have to go back and look to Teddy and his game. The hot zone isn't downfield on the sidelines. Devontae Parker could snag those balls on contested catches. Maybe Robbie Anderson can too. Not so much Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, you're going to hopefully streaking free deep in the middle of the field or not having to win a contested catch. So you look at Robbie Anderson as someone, Robbie Anderson cancels out Marshawn Lattimore when they're playing the Saints. You'll take that, right? And then you work on those other matchups. DJ Moore, not going wide receiver in the top 20, 25, 30 picks this year. I think that's where you have to take DJ Moore. I still think you might see DJ Moore because of the fact this offense will likely be a high volume offense. Teddy is good, get the ball out quickly, accurately, make the right decision. That all maps well to DJ Moore's game, as you're saying. And with Curtis Samuel, what we hope, because Curtis Samuel, we talked about him last night on the show with Matt Waldman. Cease, we miss you. Curtis Samuel is one of the players who had the widest gap between how he played and how he helped fantasy teams, or his inability to help fantasy teams. Getting open deep, Kyle Allen couldn't find him. Otherwise, you saw at the end of the year, Scott Turner, a little more inclined to use him as a runner. That could help. What you want to see is more slants, more screens, more jet sweeps, more plays where you get Curtis Samuel's speed and play and play after the catch. I think he's developing well. I think he's an underrated player. I don't know if it'll translate yet to fantasy this year, but at his price, I'll probably go in again. Last year he was going to cost you a 7th, 8th round pick. Cam Newton gets hurt. This year with Teddy, he's going to be a lot cheaper than that. So I'll probably take the ride, buy the ticket,
How about buying the ticket? Here's your Keith Kirkwood talk.
Yeah.
Right. And remember when we were excited about Seth Roberts?
No.
Who's the poor man's version of Robbie Anderson?
Right.
Okay. Here's some names, Bloom, at the end of the depth chart for Carolina.
Not much. Omar Bayless, undrafted free agent, highly productive. Pharaoh Cooper, a little bit of versatility there. But yeah, this is not. They've got one of the best trios of wide receivers in the league and one of the worst groups, number 4, number 5, and so on after that.
We were expecting that to continue for Ian Thomas. Like you saw it as a rookie. Okay, 36 catches, couple of touchdowns. Then last year, only 9 games, only 16 catches, only 1 touchdown. And now fantasy GMs are going back like, can you be excited again with Ian Thomas and lots of targets not named Ian Thomas. So tight end 2, certainly Bloom,
right.
But does he push up to that upper echelon of tight end 2, or is he, mid-range, low-end tight end 2?
Yeah, he's one of the suspects. He's one of the players we're looking at as if that breakout tight end coming after tight end 10. Ian Thomas is possible. Again, with this offense, should be high volume, should be playing from behind. Ian Thomas is a good receiving tight end. In his rookie year, when Greg Olsen got hurt, greatly exceeded expectations. Last year, not as much. Still first in line to get all the opportunity at tight end this year because of the mode of this offense. Most times it will be one that is needing a receiving tight end. So I would take a chance on him. Maybe not my first choice, but Tamarick Hemingway, I guess that's the other guy that we would talk about here. Chris Manhertz is a blocker. So it's either Ian Thomas or the tight end just won't matter in this offense.
That is a wrap for the Carolina Panthers. It is the preseason watch list. 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you want to know about, we talk about right here on this show. Next, we go down on the bayou.
On the bayou.
I'm glad you brought that song back into my life.
It's a good one.
We'll talk some New Orleans Saints on the PSWL next. Who sang that?
Hank Williams Sr.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That is old school.
Yeah, man. John Belay. I think it's called John Belay on the Bayou.
Okay.
Some good stuff. I like, country. The kids now, they don't know country music.
Well,
What
it's
they
just
think of
bro
as
country. It's just like, I got a lift kit on my truck and I'm getting drunk and my girl and my dog and like, it's just bro country. And by the way, it's enjoyed by mostly people who are not from the country.
Right.
Like country music used to, and you talk about Noah, like in The Gambler, it's like, that's a story.
Yes.
Right? There were stories, there were, fables, there were life lessons. Yeah, mythology. There were life lessons taught through song. And now it's just like, get drunk, wreck your truck. And it's like, oh my God. It's so awful. Yeah. And I hate to see it because country people were a simple group and we'll buy anything, right? Like, hey, oh my God, it's big and rich or whatever. And like, these guys aren't country. Florida Georgia line. They're not country. They're not country at all. They're just like, and all you do is you have a rock band. You're not very popular. Throw in a fiddle and a little bit of twang. And all of a sudden, country fans would be like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's like, no, oh my God. No. They do not recognize us and our way of life and our beliefs. And just, you grow up in the country, it's just different. You just grow up differently. It's a lot of rough hands, a lot of calluses, man. And I don't think those guys run around on stage singing about your truck and your high school girlfriend and all that. Like, you don't know what it's like to have your hands froze to the reins when you're 8 years old riding sick pen looking for sick cows. I know what that's like. That's
write a song about it, Cecil. Fit it into your next fit this. This is your next pitch. This is your next writing project.
Yeah, I'm too old to sing country songs, but
get someone else to be the front person.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I could do that. Be the ghostwriter, right? All right, 3, 2, 1. Always a good time down in New Orleans. Bloom, it's where you are. So let's talk about Drew Brees back for one more season, better weapons around him because we're not relying on Traquan Smith to do anything anymore. And here comes E. E gonna do E. Love Emmanuel Sanders there. We'll get to all that, but first, Brees, the impact there. We can talk about famous Jameis in a little bit as well, but Drew Brees, rinse, repeat, let's go.
Yeah, and he was actually better than you remember last year for fantasy. When he came back in, I think all but 2 games, he had at least 3 touchdown passes. And he gets Emmanuel Sanders this year. So this is the team. See, this is almost the model team when we think of continuity. Like, what do we want in the 2020 coronavirus season? We want fantasy players that are in offenses with personnel and coaching so that just set it and forget it, right? Do the Saints even need to be coached at this point? I mean, this offense, they just, they know what to do. And Drew Brees, if he's your quarterback plan or he's going, cheaper than ever, I think that's fine. I think this is going to be a very prolific offense this year. Brees just needs to stay healthy. And, behind that, it got more interesting this offseason. You thought it could be more interesting than Teddy and Taysom. I think now, Teddy, you could see the continuity going from Brees to Teddy. If Brees goes down, Saints fans might feel a little conflicted at first when they get up and cheer.
Yeah, and I was excited about Jameis. I actually talked to Shaq Barrett this week, and we talked about Jameis just a little bit, but I should have also brought up Taysom in that intro, Bloom, because there have been reports, and we always look for the drum beats, and these have been very consistent, like they're just going to use Taysom more.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to take Brees off the field, but the reporters continue to insist, and there's some great New Orleans reporters that continue to insist that, Taysom Hill will be used more. He is being groomed as that quarterback of the future.
Well, I mean, what did they give him, like a $21 million 2-year extension? Something like that. After he was a restricted free agent, they tendered him at a first-round level as a restricted free agent, I believe. So if they aren't thinking of him as the quarterback of the future, then this is odd. And I know people say, well, he has so few snaps as a drop-back quarterback. How could they feel so confident about him? The actions show that there is something to that. So for dynasty leagues, especially dynasty superflex leagues, Taysom is a guy you want in your back pocket because as a starter with his running ability, then he's going to have fantasy value, even if it doesn't go well as a passer. But then you might say, well, if they like him so much, why isn't he the backup quarterback? Well, they use him a lot in those plays. I mean, CC was one of the best players on the field in the loss to the Vikings, right? One of the only reasons they hung in with the Vikings were the plays that Hill was making. Those plays were working. And I don't know how to quantify this, Cease. We've come up with a name for this factor. There are just certain players that when they make a play, the teammates get fired up. The crowd gets fired up. It just, that's Taysom Hill, a hyper athletic guy. And quick quiz, right? How many touchdown passes did Taysom Hill catch last year? Just what's your guess?
3.
6.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah. 6. So they're using him in a way that's efficient. I know that he takes some snaps away from Brees in the red zone, but as I said, Brees was passing a lot of touchdowns last year. And then they have Winston. What you like from Winston is, you wish more players would make decisions like this. Like, I don't care about making money, although I don't know who was going to pay him. If Tampa didn't get Tom Brady, he may well have gone back to Tampa on a $15 or $20 million deal. Instead, he gets the league minimum. But he wants to go to an organization that has created success for its players. I hope that Winston has a wonderful second chapter of his career somewhere because he made a decision with a long view instead of a short view. And if Brees gets hurt, it could be very, very interesting to watch him. But he's the guy that's more of the handcuff in your deeper leagues, your super flex leagues is more important. Handcuff quarterbacks this year. So this picture, very interesting. I do think Cecil will probably see Taysom Hill as the starter next year for the Saints. And, no matter what, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. And we'll see what happens. Can Alvin Kamara stay healthy? That's the only thing. Yeah. There's no nuance here. Like, Kamara is fantastic. Is he going to be healthy? That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because last year he wasn't healthy when he came back. He missed a couple of games, but he wasn't really healthy until late December. With all of these running backs going into a contract year, we're watching that. I don't think Kamara's going to hold out. No signs at all that he's going to hold out. But when he came back, the explosiveness in mid-December was back. he didn't. If anything, we'll talk a little bit about Latavius Murray before we get to the Latavius Murray take. But Latavius Murray did not have the Mark Ingram role last year, even though Latavius Murray looked better than Ingram did when Kamara was out. So Kamara is still a main cog in this offense. And if everything's working, even if Emmanuel Sanders fans out the target tree a little bit, it all gets more efficient, if that's possible, for this offense. So I think you're looking at drafts. They're going to be by the book this year. Mccaffrey 1, Barkley 2, Elliott 3, Kamara number 4. And I think that's a fine pick because, as you said, Cecil, if he stays healthy, he may outproduce that or just give you production above and beyond what you usually get out of the number 4 pick, even if he's number 4 because all of those other backs lived up to their expectations too.
I have to ask you, Bloom.
Yeah.
Is the video feed getting wonky for you?
Not for me.
Okay, it's getting wonky for me. So I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
That's what happens when we do 2 preseason watch lists in a row. Bail! So
abort!
We'll continue on. As long as you can hear me, we'll continue on. And we'll continue on with that, I don't know, Ty Montgomery hot talk. Like, Ty Montgomery in this offense is very interesting. Very interesting if the opportunity were to arise.
Yes. Well, because he maps more to Kamara's skill set. But did they even need that? I mean, Murray was excellent as a receiver last year. So it's like this. Montgomery may or may not make the team. You know, you've got Montgomery, you've got Dwayne Washington, you know, you've got some players there that they're going to be looking at as a number 3 running back, but we know this is the Kamara Murray backfield. Now, if Montgomery makes the team, then if Kamara goes down, Murray probably won't have that every down role that he had last year, even though he was outstanding. I mean, Latavius Murray, when Alvin Kamara was out, was a week winner for you both weeks. But Ty Montgomery can do a lot of the things in the passing game in the way that Kamara does. They like him. They think they can rehabilitate his career. So we have to keep that in mind. And it makes Murray just a little less attractive handcuff as one of the few true handcuffs in fantasy football right now, where you think if the starter goes down, this guy's going to step right in and maybe give you close to, if not more value after what he did last year. Now with Montgomery there, take some of the shine off of that.
Can't guard Mike.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing, outstanding, spectacular. You already know the take. So Emmanuel Sanders is the interesting one here because they actually have someone that can do something, not named Michael Thomas, at the wide receiver position. And he showed last year with San Francisco, even getting wide open in the Super Bowl, Jimmy G, that he can get it done at a high level, provided that he's healthy. Get a little bit banged up with the Broncos, but certainly was re-energized with the 49ers. I'm expecting E to be quite energized with the Saints now. Yeah,
and with Michael Thomas, you know, again, not a lot of nuance here. Probably the number 5 pick in a lot of drafts, maybe number 6. You can weighing him and Derrick Henry, something like that, or Dalvin Cook, if Dalvin Cook gets signed or just shows up for camp. He probably won't be quite at the level he was at last year. Wow. You know, breaking a Marvin Harrison record for receptions in the season, looking good doing it. Nothing cheap about what Michael Thomas did last year. Far and away the number 1 receiver. I don't blame anyone for taking him. His numbers will be down a little bit. Still your odds-on favorite to be the most valuable receiver. It's just a year when getting value out of receivers is easier, so you may want to start your draft with a wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders, and see, so we have to ask, how much was Emmanuel Sanders just fitting right into the San Francisco offense because Rich Scangarello was running that Shanahan offense, and how much is that's just Emmanuel Sanders? You know, he did the same thing going from Pittsburgh to Denver, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a ramp-up time for him. Go ahead. You want to say something on this?
No, I mean, and that was Peyton Manning. I was going to say Adam Gase, but no, that was Peyton.
Yeah, and then you have Drew Brees. I mean, you have this structure, you have this continuity. I don't know how the rest of the league let them get Sanders. They slow-played free agency a bit. They got Sanders not right out of the gate. I think there were other teams looking at Sanders, and he made a great choice, I think. Got this close. He was right there to, you know, he did his part to get the ring. It wasn't he who let down the team at the moment of truth. Although everyone says that Mahomes just would have led the Chiefs down the field again, probably. I don't know. We would have remembered the game differently, though. We'd remember Garoppolo's season differently if that had happened. But, yeah, now you have that guy. You're worried about Michael Thomas. You're worried about Alvin Kamara. We also haven't even talked about Jared Cook yet. He's prominent in this pass offense. Emmanuel Sanders is going to crush the matchups he gets. just crush him. So I think he's going, I don't know, 8th, 9th, 10th round. I mean, he's being overlooked. I know that it was a bit up and down with San Francisco, but we know he can still play. We know this is going to be a productive offense. If you like taking Drew Brees, this is a reason to put even more stock in Brees, giving him that. It's not Ted Ginn. I mean, it's not a receiver that can get open, but you're Traquan Smith, who we'll talk about in a second. You keep your fingers crossed. Emmanuel Sanders is going to get open, and he's going to finish the deal.
And Brees is going to find him. And remember, in San Francisco, up and down, just like Kubiak or Shanahan, it's a run-based system. This is a pass-based system. So Emmanuel Sanders, good luck. That's going to be awesome. Going to be awesome to watch. You mentioned Traquan Smith. The team's still excited about him. That made me excited when I heard coaches basically talking about that through back channels. Like, okay, but Traquan doesn't get it done on the field. I'll say this. I didn't get to throw out any love for Tony Jones, the running back from Notre Dame Bloom, who I saw at the Shrine Bowl, but I did see Juwan Johnson down there, the big receiver from Oregon. Now undrafted. It's going to be a weird year for undrafted guys. But preseason watch list, a normal year, I'd say Juwan Johnson would be one of these reserve receivers that I'm watching.
Yeah, I think that Juwan Johnson, a couple of years ago when he was at Penn State, we would have been talking about him as somebody that not top 10, first round pick. I mean, he was high on a lot of boards, and Juwan Johnson has a lot of potential. Traquan Smith, and did you see who it was, by the way, making the comments about Traquan Smith? Do you remember? Wide receiver coach for the Saints, Ronald Curry. Ooh. Ronald Curry.
Yeah.
Remember those North Carolina receivers, Akeem Nicks? Anyway, Ronald Curry, and before his Achilles tear, he looked like he was on his way to do some big things. But you like seeing that. You like reason to bring up Ronald Curry's name. But Traquan Smith, maybe for dynasty leagues, don't give up on him yet. Like if somebody lets him go at final cutdowns of your dynasty league going into the season, know that the Saints are still very high on him, and signing Emmanuel Sanders isn't really an indictment of where he's at this point in his development. They still have Lil Jordan Humphrey, who's kind of a Cordero Patterson type, Austin Carr, who's more of a slot receiver, Krishawn Hogan, a small school guy with all kinds of physical ability, Manuel Butler, who almost made the team as an undrafted free agent, another small school guy with length and physical ability. But you actually see of all these names, there is a receiver who's going to be more involved in the offense this year. It's Deontay Harris. Deontay Harris, after what he contributed, he was another spark plug for this team last year. All the talk has been that he is going to be more involved. Again, you see this trend. These guys are like 5'6", 5'7", 160 pounds, but quick, fast.
Tommy Lee Lewis.
Lee Lewis, and he's going to be a better Tommy Lee Lewis. So Deontay Harris is not so much a player to watch for fantasy, but just that extra element. So defending the Saints, you have all these looks from Taysom Hill. You have all these looks from Deontay Harris. You have Emmanuel Sanders working against number 2 corners. You have Mike Thomas, can't guard Mike. You have Alvin Kamara. And actually had a really good season last year when he was healthy, Jared Cook.
Yeah. Jared Cook, as we move to the tight ends, there he is, and we know his game. Just got to stay healthy and be a big part of what this team does. And then Adam Troutman, the rookie from Dayton, was he the best tight end in this class? It was a great class, by the way. But what did you talk about Cole Kmet a couple of shows ago? It's like, okay, wasn't a great class, but Troutman was up there, and he's a better receiving prospect. Kmet's more of a Y, but if you want to say Adam Troutman, the kid from Dayton, number 1 tight end in this class, sure, I'll look at his route running ability. Our own Matt Waldman on our footballguys.com website says could be the South's version of Dallas Goedert. Like that sound?
Yeah, you do. You do, and hey, this is a position of strength. Jared Cook was a top 6 fantasy tight end, and I know you can look at the low number of targets, but he converted them into big plays more than anybody else. And just like Jared Cook, I mean, he could have been bigger. I mean, there were touchdowns that he had that he dropped, but when Drew Brees was looking to Jared Cook last year, it was often in the end zone. It was often against defenses that were worried about other things, giving Cook a lot of room to run. This is why they went out and they had Jimmy Graham in this role and hadn't had anybody else until they got Jared Cook in free agency. I believe that New England was also in for Jared Cook last year, if I remember correctly. They were able to woo him down there. And Jared Cook, even though, now look, Brees got hurt, Cook got hurt. Once the two of them were back on the field together and healthy, Cook was an every week fantasy start. And his ADP is down from last year. Down sometimes out of the top 12 fantasy tight ends. So Cook, as your plan A at tight end, I'm fine with that because of all these different binds that the defense has put in and how this offense and this playbook has already shown the ability to maximize what Cook can do. And then you have Troutman. And see, if you were to say that Troutman has the highest ceiling as a receiver of any of the tight ends in the class, for
Easily.
sure.
Easily. Yep.
But he's playing at Dayton. First guy to be drafted from Dayton in like 43 years or something like that. So that's why there's some doubt. But when you watched him, Dayton, you saw what you wanted to see from a small school player and that he looked the best player on the field by a large margin. And he could use his physical tools to overwhelm his opponents. And the Saints moved up for him. I think they traded like every pick they had left to move up and get him. After they traded some other assets to move up and get Zach Bond, who they might make an inside linebacker, IDP players, keep that in mind. Saints doing damage in the draft like they always do. You know, I mean, this team is always a step ahead in the draft. And when they zero in on a skill player, you should take notice. When they say, okay, we've checked off the shopping list. Now we just have to get Adam Troutman. We don't really care about having darts to throw on the third day. We have to get Adam Troutman. You pay attention to that in dynasty leagues.
That's what we say. Message. So make sure to stay tuned for that. It is the preseason watch list, 32 teams, 32 episodes, and every skill position player that you should know about. We talk about on this show. We tie a big red bow on the NFC South with a trip to Tampa Bay. Tampa Brady? Like, what didn't he trademark one of those things? Like Tampa Bay, Tampa Brady?
It doesn't quite roll off the tongue.
I don't know. Anyway, we're taking a trip to Tampa and check in on scores. What? I mean, check in on Tom Brady. We'll do that next. Tampa Brady? Tampa Brady? Yeah. I don't know.
Tampa Bay 12.
All right. So everything's good on your end?
Yeah.
Okay. Got a little wonky for me on this end. So
they said it was good when they were watching.
I didn't tell the kids no streaming. So I don't know. Hopefully.
That's saying I didn't do the same. I did the same thing either. So.
All right. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Tom Brady is now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what does that mean? And goodness abound for this team. The Super Bowl's in Tampa, if we even get one. So can Tommy lead them there? We're going to talk fantasy perspective, of course, Bloom, which means good things. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, that abounds anyway. The ground game is interesting, but do they really need it with Gronk and OJ and Cameron Brate and all those receivers we talk about? And Tom Brady leading the way from a fantasy perspective. How excited can you be with Brady at quarterback?
Somewhat excited. It's
okay.
I mean, well, look, this was the pass offense that created amazing fantasy goodness last year, right? I mean, it just the cup runneth over and runneth over and runneth over and runneth over. If you had Evans, you had Godwin, even at the end of the year with Brashad Perryman, if you were just playing Jameis Winston every week. It's not going to be that same offense, though. It's the Tom Brady, Bruce Arians offense. And this is another one from the NFL reality show point of view. Oh, wow. I mean, this is a storyline that you're first in line to get your ticket and watch this movie, no matter what happens, especially with Bruce Arians. So Bruce Arians has said, unlike with Peyton, so you can testify to this. When Peyton came into Denver, it was Peyton's offense.
Oh, yes.
This is not Tom Brady's offense. This is Bruce Arians' offense with Tom Brady's input. And Tom Brady apparently was like, tell me what you want me to do. It's the difference in personalities. Brady's an interesting case study. I encourage folks to go back and read. I think it was a New York Times long-form article about him. He's not a true alpha, right? Tom Brady is not a guy who is going to make sure that everybody in the room knows he's in charge. He actually is kind of a follower. He's somebody who has these gurus in his life that he follows. You even look at his marriage with Giselle, He's not even the richest or most prominent name around the world in his own household. And I think even, some of the different things you see, the influence that she has on him and the person that he's become. So anyway, Bruce Arians, that's a strong presence. I don't think that the Tom Brady presence is going to overwhelm the Bruce Arians presence, and it's still going to be a Bruce Arians offense. But I also think this is a team that's going to take care of the ball more with Tom Brady than it did with Jameis Winston. Lower scoring games, less frenetic games, some of the no risk it, no biscuit. That's not Tom Brady. And Bruce Arians, I think, is a rational enough coach to not try to force him to be that. Tom Brady's not Ben Roethlisberger. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not Jameis Winston. So it's a little more structured. And see, you think that is going to help. Of course, you get Rob Gronkowski, hand-picked his guy, come out of retirement and play for him. How about that, by the way? Bill Belichick is the emperor, the master of everything, except Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski does what Rob Gronkowski wants.
You're not going to trade him to Detroit. He's going to retire.
Yes, and then come back when Tom Brady plays for someone other than Bill Belichick. And you have Chris Godwin, who fits that Julian Edelman mode of getting open early. You have Mike Evans. And look, Randy Moss, Josh Gordon. Brady has riffed with receivers like that, but you think the pass attempts are going to be down. The risk factor is going to be down. The defense should get better. This team is, I think, absolutely a Super Bowl contender. I mean, this is the perfect year to come into the season with a whole new mentality, a whole new set of expectations. And Tom Brady, if he is an alpha with his habits. He's an alpha with the way he goes about his business. And I think that is what's going to be potentially the source of the magical thinking here, the source of the transformation of this franchise. It's not so much Tom Brady's going to make some play that only Tom Brady could make at the end of a game. It's that Tom Brady has been there, done that 6 times. And all you want to know about how to get there, you do by just watching how he goes about his business. And I'm excited to see what happens, just to see how he rubs off on his teammates and changes this, because as we said, teams take on the personality of their coach and their quarterback. What does it change whenever part of your personality goes from Jameis Winston to Tom Brady?
It's going to be absolutely exciting. Plus, Bloom, one thing that we have to realize and note, we talked about Josh Allen in the AFC East preview. He's terrible throwing downfield. Tom Brady, from an advanced data standpoint, is exceptional throwing downfield.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
It's the decisions. It's that when he's throwing downfield, he found something. He spotted something. So, again, not to the Jameis Winston attempts, yardage expectations, but it should be much better from a fantasy standpoint than what we saw in New England last year.
Everybody excited. Again, I talked to Shaq Barrett a couple days ago. Super excited. Of course, you're getting 20 sacks. You're going to be excited. Yeah. So let's talk about the guys behind him, I guess. Who's the COVID quarterback? Because Bruce Arians is going to have someone. Is it Ryan Griffin? Is it? I had learned through back channels, Bloom, that he's going to assign someone to be like, okay, you're our quarterback, and you're never going to be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it might be Ryan Griffin. Blaine Gabbert will be the on-field, game day backup.
Yeah, and look, Gabbert was actually pretty good with Arians in Arizona, right? I mean, he got some decent football out of him. I think they won a game that they weren't supposed to win with Gabbert. So, yeah, Gabbert's the backup. Griffin's the number 3. Arians thinking ahead, saying, I want a quarterback that if they say all of our quarterbacks tested positive because they've been working together, that we have somebody that we can start. And Griffin has some continuity with the team for a while now. So I think that's what you're looking at here. And it's something to think about. Like, if Arians is thinking about it for how he manages his team. I just published the commissioner's guide. I'm going to do the player's guide here in the next couple of days for how we think about fantasy football. At least be open to thinking of it differently, like the wise and always candid Bruce Arians.
B.A. Love him. Rojo, do you love him? A great debate going on in our chat room right now, Friendly One Bloom, about Ronald Jones and what he can do, what he can be for this team with Tom Brady leading the way. And certainly defense is not going to be worried about Ronald Jones or Keyshawn Vaughn. I'll throw him in there as well. Rookie, hard charger, loves to dance, though. That's my biggest problem with Keyshawn. I think I bring it up every time in our newswire when I write about Keyshawn Vaughn. It's like, hard charger, loves to dance. Always looking for the home run. Sometimes just needs to take what the defense gives him. Sounds like a young Ronald Jones.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I want to say as an aside, where we're talking about coronavirus in this team, Donovan Smith has been one of the players who sounds like he's going to consider the opt-out. So, that's something to consider. At least they got Tristan Wirfs in the first round. If there is an Achilles heel of this offense, it would be the tackle position. So that's just something to watch as this team goes into the season, see what happens with Donovan Smith. Ronald Jones is the starter. Mark Cook from Pewter Report. I mean, he's top 3, top 5 most trusted sources of news about any team, Pewter Report.
Yes.
And they say Ronald Jones is the starter unless he just implodes in training camp or gets injured. So Keyshawn Vaughn's not going to overtake him out of the gate. Ronald Jones, he improved last year, still didn't earn the trust of the coaches. Peyton Barber's gone, but you still have Dare Ogunbowale, who, with Tom Brady, he's not James White. He is a Wisconsin back, but he's that third down back. He's that passing down back, and maybe they have more time that they're in that mode because Brady has done so well throwing to the running back. And Ronald Jones did improve as a receiver last year too. He bulked up. He says he's been working on his hands. If you're going to dabble in this backfield, it is Ronald Jones. It's not Keyshawn Vaughn. As you said, Cease, he's broken some big plays, but he looks too much for the big play. He's not a great receiving running back. He's a check down running back. They did not bring him in to be James White or some 3-down back. He's an assignment football kind of running back, a replacement level running back. So if you want to dabble in this backfield, it's probably Ronald Jones. But the best thing to do, like last year, the answer was avoid this backfield until I see evidence that that's not the answer this year. That's how I'm going to proceed.
Let's talk about I still love TJ Logan. I do.
Yeah.
Man. And got that lightning there in that North Carolina backfield. Raymond Calais.
Yeah.
Louisiana Lafayette. He's a speed demon. He's a big play guy as well. So interesting names. Dynasty, again, not redraft, but deep dynasty. I'm watching.
Yeah, what we would hope if this was a preseason, like a typical one, we'd hope Calais in the preseason could show he can do the things that Ogunbowale can do, but with some dynamic speed and some dynamic quickness to make some plays. So maybe more of a practice squad guy at this point. And the Raging Cajuns, always like to mention that. I know Lafayette, it's a place, you get the boudin there, see. That's what you go to your gas station. You got gas station fried chicken in New Orleans. You go to Lafayette to get your gas station boudin.
Boudin. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Go. Great debate. Right. Who's going to be number one? Well, I know Evans is getting 1,000 yards because he always does. And Godwin emerging. Godwin or Evans or both.
Neither? Is that okay for fantasy? Well, okay. Godwin's going to cost you a second-round pick. And the idea is, Bruce Arians slot receiver, Bruce Arians slot receiver, Bruce Arians slot receiver. Certainly it paid off and paid off and paid off. Godwin last year was like that slot machine that's going, ting, 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 ting. It's like, when is it going to stop? Ting, 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 ting. The coins just keep coming out. Somebody bring over their hat and catch some more of these Chris Godwin coins until he got hurt, Will they even have a big role for a slot receiver this year, Cease? Skipping ahead, but isn't this a 2 tight end offense with the addition of Rob Gronkowski?
Mm-hmm.
Is the slot receiver, is Chris Godwin going to be that guy? I think Chris Godwin's more of an outside receiver this year. How much does that lower his numbers? With the depth at wide receiver, I'm just not taking a wide receiver in the second round this year. I'm taking Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, a George Kittle, Travis Kelce, maybe a running back. Okay. Mike Evans, 3rd round pick. Okay, cheaper than you're used to getting him. There will be some big games there. And I suppose if I'm going to go with one of the two, I'd go with Mike Evans. But I think it's going to be a little more up and down. It's just not going to be the same volume, not going to be the same frenetic pace, catching up to bail out. And look, Godwin did have a significant percentage of his stats that came when the Bucs were kind of out of the game. So it inflated things. I just think that this year, both with the glut of wide receivers and the unknown, we know that the passing pie is going to get smaller. We just don't know how much smaller. And we also know there's Rob Gronkowski grinning saying, I like pie. I like to eat some pie.
On a very weird note, Bloom, which is making me think of segues.
Yeah.
I can say this. I know Chris Godwin's college girlfriend, and he's a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
He's a heartbreaker. I think he might be a heartbreaker for fantasy GMs this year.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Like a Led Zeppelin heartbreaker? Or was it Heart that did Heartbreaker? Also?
Heartbreaker.
Lovemaker, don't you mess around with me.
Was that Pat Benatar?
Or Pat Benatar? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. We're super old. Let's continue on this conversation. And, Tyler Johnson is there. And then you look at what he did at Minnesota. You're like, oh, my God. All right. But he was a slot guy. Okay. Where's that going to mix in? Kind of the same take here. People are looking at Scotty Miller. There's so much talk about these receivers, and people are trying to clamor for these backups, which is fine. Justin Watson, Tyler Johnson, rookie Minnesota, and Scott Miller. there's plenty of things to talk about, Bloom, but I'm not stocking up on these guys based on the next position we'll get to, those tight ends.
Right. There's only room for two wide receivers to be fantasy relevant here. And again, with Tyler Johnson and Greg Cosell, got to mention this. I know, preseason watch list rarely mention other sites, but Greg Cosell is doing work over at Fantasy Points. A lot of great people doing great work over at Fantasy Points. And he said, Tyler Johnson's a classic slot only. And I agree. Tyler Johnson's a classic slot receiver in the NFL. So if Tyler Johnson wins a role on this team, again, this is another possibility that slot snaps are taken away from Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin stays outside when they do go 3 wide, and Tyler Johnson comes in. Justin Watson, Ivy League, a lot of physical ability, got some opportunities last year, small opportunities. Scotty Miller was ahead of him, though. Scotty Miller, you get some John Brown vibes with Bruce Arians. Scotty Miller, small school guy, a little undersized, speedy, got an opportunity last year, got hurt. I think if you're going to stash any of these 3 for Dynasty, it probably would still be Miller, but you're not looking, as you said, Cease, for anything this year, even though there's some interesting talent to track the development of down the line.
I love F is for Family on Netflix, and there's a character that goes 1, 2, 3, baby. That's what I think of when I think of this tight end group for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just wanted to say that 1, 2, 3, baby, because you have Rob Gronkowski, you have OJ Howard, you have Cameron Brate. How's this work out for that team? It's a 2 tight end set. They've got 3. And
right.
What are fantasy GMs doing in drafts going on right now?
Yeah, or 4, Cease. Anthony Auclair, who they signed to. He's a blocking tight end, but that still matters. They signed him to an extension, and they like him. I think he was a Shrine Game Canadian participant.
You are correct.
So, they like their tight ends, and they can mix and match them to do different things with them. And they get Rob Gronkowski to come out of a retirement. See, doesn't that seem like, speaking of the dog year of 2020, I mean, that felt like a lifetime ago. And it was Rob Gronkowski's coming out of retirement. That should have just stopped the whole sports world. Had already happened by that point, though. Wow. Just wow. Rob Gronkowski. He's going to be certainly in the red zone a top target. He's going to change the blueprint of this offense. He'll be a little bit lighter. You wonder if his body healed a little bit. He's a little more, he's got verve. He's got spring in his step. I'm not going to talk anyone out of making Gronkowski their number 1 fantasy tight end at the 9th, 10th, 11th pick. See, when were we able to get Gronkowski as the 9th, 10th, 11th tight end ever? And I get it. Yeah, and he underperformed that in his last year with the Patriots, but I can tell a story where he does more this year. He's going to be on the field a ton. And then, okay, so they get Gronkowski out of retirement. That means they're going to trade OJ Howard. No. That means they're going to trade or cut Cameron Brate. No. They're showing us their intentions with their personnel. This is a 2 tight end offense. Howard can still be an excellent player in that smaller role, much the same way that Noah Fant was set up last year. Noah Fant, oftentimes, he wasn't making contested catches. They weren't asking him to do a lot of subtle things. But when he did get the ball, he was often in the open field, kind of schemed open, and then you saw the athleticism take over. Do that with OJ Howard this year. It's not going to make him fantasy relevant. It's another reason to be a little wary about drafting those wide receivers at ADP, because there's still a role for OJ Howard. OJ Howard's not your primary tight end, but OJ Howard is a player that if you forget about him as a defense, he's going to hurt you. Cameron Brate, maybe some red zone presence there. Anthony Auclair, again, I said as a blocking tight end, but this is a 2 tight end offense, as it should be with the personnel that they have there. And it's another reason maybe to think about, again, if Donovan Smith isn't playing because he opts out, Tristan Wirfs, the 4th out of those 4, maybe the highest athletic ceiling of the 4, maybe the least NFL ready out of the 4. Some holes in his game. Rob Gronkowski, very, very good blocker. So it makes sense that, hey, if Gronk's out on the field as a 3rd tackle, that frees up OJ Howard or Cameron Brate to do more. And if you think I've been shown this story before, I'm not going to be tricked, Rob Gronkowski's going to get hurt, then maybe it's OJ Howard's year. Matt Waldman wrote a gut check recently about OJ Howard as potentially a key to your fantasy draft. So a lot to think about here with this Tampa Bay offense, a lot that we're going to be watching closely. They have a lot of different possibilities, all set in motion by Tom Brady and then Rob Gronkowski joining this team. So Tampa fans, it's been a bit since the John Gruden Super Bowl year, but there's no fan base that should be more excited right now.
And we're back. And we start this NFC South with the shortest episode ever in the history of Preseason Watch List to the longest. Because there's so much to talk about with Tampa Bay. It's interesting. It's exciting. It's what we do on this show. Do the YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and thank you all for watching here on YouTube. Thanks for checking out footballguys.com. I know, Bloom, I know a lot of channels that are just about the super chats and super chat now, send it now. And we just want to hang out and talk football. And here's what we do. If you want to support the show, first, thank you. Second, just go to footballguys.com. Check us out. Sign up for that free daily newsletter. If you like what we do, buy a subscription. We're awesome. We're footballguys.com. So thank you all very much for checking out the show, for checking out footballguys.com, for listening on iTunes or whatever they call it now, Apple Music and Spotify and all that. It's awesome. Thank you guys very much. We're here to talk football with you. We love talking to football and dig the fact that so many of you enjoy it. So also tell us, do you like the close-up, super extreme close-up, or do you like the one with the background? So let's do the Scooby-Doo ending. And I don't know. I kind of like the close-up one, Bloom.
Yeah, and I feel like
I need your matador behind you.
We hung it up in the. I'm gonna put something up here. We're not sure yet. We're gonna do the shelves so we can rotate through we did back at the house on East Second in Austin.
Okay, all right. I like that. Okay, we'll do that up. We will talk more football, more preseason watch list that will continue. He's Sigmund Bloom. I'm Cecil Lammey. We are the Audible. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. Stay tuned and stay frosty.